This week's episode of Still Untitled is made possible by TripleByte. Applying to programming jobs sucks, from endless applications to countless hours of technical screens. With TripleByte, there's a better way. You do one online interview, and then you go straight to final interviews at hundreds of companies, from tech giants like Dropbox to exciting startups. It's like the common app for software engineers. No resume needed. Apply now at triplebyte.com/untitled. And if you take a job through TripleByte, they'll offer you a $1,000 signing bonus. That's TripleByte, BYTE.com/untitled. On to the show.
Welcome to Still Untitled, the Adam Savage Project. I'm Will.
I'm Adam.
I'm Max.
Hey,
Hello, Max.
Hi.
welcome Max Temkin to the show.
Max, I'm astonished that we haven't met before. Because
We've met in we've done some like fly-by nights before. We've never really hung out.
That's it.
Yeah, we've
And-
like spoken at events together.
And there's been
things
so
like that.
many crossovers. We know so many of the same people.
That's true.
You know.
you
yes.
guys know Scalzi and Pat
Yeah.
and a bunch of wonderful human beings.
I
Yes.
love Pat. Did you see his tweet this weekend? He was on a plane and he said he was getting a pat down and he went, "Oh yeah,"
Just work the hair.
in that voice.
Work the beard. He did the first Woodstock I went. He read from his children's book. The one that's like, it seems like a normal, wholesome children's book. And then you get to the part where it's like, if you're reading with your child, you might not want to go past this point. and then I had what I would describe as the single most embarrassing celebrity interaction I've ever had with Pat backstage at Woodstock. And he was very generous and kind. And I continue to be horrified by my behavior.
What did you do?
I just walked up to him and I was like, I really love, like, your book is really good. It's the only fantasy I'm not embarrassed to recommend to my friends. And then I just walked away because I was like, well, that's done. I can never speak to him again.
Well, that ought to do it.
Yep. So if you don't know Max is one of the co-creators of Cards Against Humanity, Secret Hitler, Black Box. You host Dubai Friday, and I'm not going to say the name of the Pat podcast because I'm offended by it every single time.
What is it?
Unattended Consequences.
Yeah, well, that's something Pat's kid said. Yeah.
Oh, it's very cute then. But yeah, and Max is a good friend. Max has been, we've known you since, I think, back in the Whiskey Media days, in the basement of the...
Well, I got very lucky that when I got, I sort of started coming to game conferences and started getting into the industry and meeting people and stuff. And I just somehow, Ryan was an early Cards fan, and
Right.
he found it and played it on the Bombcast. I think you were there.
I was there.
You were on that episode. And I remember watching, I didn't really know what Giant Bomb was because I wasn't from the video game world. And I remember watching that video, and then it just exploded, and I was like, "Who are these
We sold
guys?"
out Amazon of cards
It was
before
it was crazy.
before like the show was over.
was
I think.
it was a huge break for us, and then I became friends with Ryan because I reached out and I was like, "Thank you for doing that." And Ryan was. Did you know Ryan?
No.
Ryan Davis.
Ryan
No.
Davis was.
He was one of
yeah.
the Giant Bomb guys. He passed away a few years ago, but he was one of those guys. He had such a good heart, and he was just the best guy, and he knew all the best people, and he was a no bullshit guy. Can we curse on this podcast?
Yeah, you can,
I'm
all
sorry.
the words.
And he was a no bullshit guy, and he knew all the other people in the industry who weren't. I don't know what it was. They loved what they did, and they were cool
Those
people.
human filters are really important.
And
Yeah.
it's one of the great lucky things that happened in my life was I became friends with Ryan, and I met Ryan's friend, and I feel like I skipped all of this work of meeting the cool people in
Like,
games.
you never had to go to networking mixers at
No.
conventions.
No.
Yeah, it's good. That's a good thing to be in.
I also really appreciate. I appreciate, in addition to the runaway success of the stuff that you keep on jumping into, not dabbling, is that there's a strong element of political activism as well.
Well, that was my first, in a prior life, that's what I worked on Democratic campaigns and elections. I still do, but now I don't have to do it for a living, which is, I couldn't recommend that more highly. So that's, that's what I feel like I'm here in life to do is win campaigns and elections. So,
Yes.
Yeah.
I realized something this morning.
Yes.
I was reading yet another delightful news story about the incredibly honest, fantastically forthright rhetoric of Mayor Pete Buttigieg.
Yeah.
Buttigieg. And for some reason, I was like, wow, I really like Mayor Pete. And then saying that phrase in my head, I was like, wait a minute. And I looked through my calendar, and it turns out, in 2018, I actually spoke in Indiana at what do you call it, Notre Dame, and I sat on a panel at City Hall with Mayor Pete talking about city infrastructure. That I met him.
Oh, so you have a relationship.
Yeah, and they brought me there to be part of an idea festival that they were bringing innovation to the town, and they had telling me about the smart sewers they built to deal with flooding that shut themselves off to keep flooding from ending up in different parts of the city. And I was like, this place is great.
You should come out for Mayor Pete. Let's do a Mayor Pete event together.
Absolutely.
Are you into it?
I'm totally into it.
We'll talk. Let's do we'll do a Mayor Pete fundraiser. I love that. I love him.
And the thing I love, my wife and I were talking about it this morning. The thing I really appreciate about him and AOC is that there's a level of, not just a level of intelligence and honesty. There's none of their rhetoric includes all the obfuscation in any given politician's toolbox.
Right.
Like,
there's no.
I'm going to talk about the thing so that you're not paying attention to the other thing you kind of asked me about, but I'm going to elide that. Yeah. When they want to elide something, they'll say, that's not within the scope of what I want to talk about. They'll just say it and then move towards the thing they do.
Yeah.
And
Democrats are we're so like browbeaten over the last 20 years of politics. We're so afraid to like want things and be in favor of things. It's true. And you can hear it when you hear people talk and they have this mealy mouth like weasel language and like, I support every hardworking person's right to have access to an opportunity to maybe get affordable health care. And it's like, what the fuck are you talking about? And it's so bracing when you hear AOC or any of these sort of like new, like young, like millennial Democrats who get elected, and they're like, healthcare is a human right. Everyone should have healthcare, and you're like, oh, are you allowed? Are we allowed to want that?
Well, and I will tell you that when I was speaking in the town, they were like, I did the panel, and it was really fun and great and really informative, and the crowd of people from the city interested in the city's future, et cetera, was a really interesting speaking engagement. And I was saying to the woman who was taking me on to the appearance that I was doing, I was like, Mayor Pete's great. And she's like, oh, yeah. We're all hoping he'll run for president. And I was like, 37-year-old mayor of a small, I mean, that is sweet.
Good luck.
And I was kind of like, had that, sure, if that happens. And then, I'm like, I really like this Mayor Pete. Wait a minute, I've met him.
Well,
so...
I mean, there's a thing.
Let's do something.
Watching AOC like come into congressional hearings and you, like you see, there's a level of preparation. Like I worked on the Hill for 2 summers when I was in college, right? I went to a lot of committee hearings,
right? And
the old white men who typically are asking questions in those places are like 2/3 grandstanding for C-SPAN and then 1/3 trying to remember the question that they were supposed to ask by their aides told them to ask. Yeah. And she comes in. And she sits down with 4 questions and gets exactly the information that she wants. It's going to kick off a hearing, an investigation in, whatever jurisdiction the person she's talking to.
The other thing that I can tell you why that is, and the reason is when you see the grandstanding and you see, using wrestling.
I'm familiar.
You know the idea of kayfabe. Right? You know the idea of kayfabe.
Olympic sport.
No.
Kayfabe. Do you know this well?
Oh, yeah. I know. I listened to the Giant Bombcast. I'm aware.
So kayfabe. I hope I don't get this wrong. I'm sure I'll hear about it online if I do. But I'm not a big wrestling fan, but I love this idea. So kayfabe is the fabric of fiction that sits over wrestling. And if you're in professional wrestling, you maintain kayfabe at all times. Meaning you never go into the media, even in your private life or whatever. You never go it's all show. It's all
right.
You're in it. You're in the fiction.
If you're beefing with The Rock, you're always beefing with The Rock. Even if you're being interviewed outside of the context of wrestling.
I will say that Max Landis turned me around on all of this to love the whole idea of it. Wrestling is fake, right? You've seen his video?
It's the great...
He has a wonderful defense of wrestling, talking about how he's like, nobody's suffering any of this illusion. It is pure and wonderful theater.
It's a soap opera that has sports as the framework.
So kayfabe is the name, the term of art?
Yeah, I learned about it from a Radio Lab episode. So as long as we're saying our cool, masculine...
Radio Lab.
Yeah.
Radio Lab.
As long as we're saying our cool masculine ways that we got into wrestling, academic YouTube video and a Radio Lab episode. But politics has a kayfabe to it. There's a way that we all pretend to behave in certain ways and this veneer of like civility over it. And part of when people behave according to that kayfabe is because they owe people things. There's powerful interests and lobbyists and money who gave people money, and now they want a lot of money. They want those questions asked. They don't want other things asked. What's cool about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Mayor Pete, all these sort of young people who are just like they're not beholden. They're not bought and sold already. Like they're not beholden to anyone. So she just
yeah.
legitimately
Also,
goes in and asks what her constituents want her to ask.
But
she doesn't
she's
know
also
anyone
not
anything.
spending 2 or 3 hours every day doing fundraising. She's
right,
very
yeah.
specifically decided to take in what she's getting on the website is enough, and she's spending her time researching.
Well, and there's a thing I look
With
at.
so many of you,
Yeah.
I know you. I know that many of you get upset when we talk politics,
I'm sorry,
but
I'm not
That's
sorry.
what's happening this morning.
Tweet at Will Smith with any of your comments.
Boost my social media. So the thing that I find is that I'm looking at the people running for president on the Democratic side this year, and we have a bunch of young people, a bunch of middle-aged people, and a bunch of old people. Most of the baggage that comes with the middle-aged and older people, I think is going to be disqualifying in the long term. You look at Joe Biden, who people think of as Uncle Joe because of a bunch of onion bits from the last 15 years, but he has a 40-year history of terrible voting that should, by all rights, sink him, except for he's cool dad in sunglasses.
Yeah,
And
Obama's best friend.
Yeah.
I had
TM.
I had lunch with a guy with some interesting people who've been in politics forever. Jim Messina, who was the campaign manager for Obama in 2012, and Paul Begala, who was Clinton's campaign manager. And we were this was a couple weeks ago, and we were talking about the race and just kind of bullshitting. And so one of them, I wish I remember who, but one of them told me this amazing thing that they did a focus group and they went to a bunch of regular people and they tried to understand how are they understanding politics, like where are they getting their information. And this was maybe, I don't know, 2-3 years ago or something. What they found is the average American consumes 4 minutes of news per week.
Wow, I do that before I go to the bathroom in the morning.
Well, we're
Do that while I'm going to the bathroom.
we're very
yeah.
broken. We're very broken that we are drinking from the fire.
Can I just get pills that make me not do this anymore? Is there some sort of cure?
I wish.
How do I get average?
I don't know. Maybe a couple of Xannies, and we can stop checking Twitter all the time. But I that kind of blew my mind because it really reinforced to me that when you're talking about like the people's opinions about Biden or this or that, like most people, Biden's the only one anyone's heard of. Like nobody knows who Kamala Harris. We do because we
in
have,
California.
We have bad brains, and but most people also don't know who their state
I voted
prosecutors are.
against her twice.
Well, that's very woke of you, Will.
Yeah, I know.
We're all impressed, but I'm just saying, like, the die has not been cast here, right? Like, the voters have no idea who these people are. These polls are all over the place, and you're just asking name ID right now. You're just asking who have people heard of. Well, we're almost. I think we're just past exactly 1 year until Iowa caucuses.
Yeah.
So there's a long
slog.
way to go. Yeah.
And this is the thing. Like, there's a lot of talk in journalism circles about how we cover presidential elections, how journalists cover presidential elections, and there's a lot of talk about horse race journalism and I feel like a lot of people that don't follow that specific subset of politics don't know what that means. But it's the idea that there are opinion polls right now that have Biden and Harris in the lead and Elizabeth Warren in the lead. But it's literally just because of that. It's because people recognize those names. So when when Gallup calls them during dinner time and says, "Hey, who do you think's going to win the Democratic primary?" And they're like, "I don't know. What about that Biden guy?"
Yeah, no, it's going to be President Bodie McBoatface.
Yeah,
eventually.
God, if only we'd be so lucky. I would vote.
I'd
vote for Bodie McBoatface. Better than what we have now.
I take him.
Better than the current guy.
So I want to tell you where I've been.
Yeah, you did something interesting.
I did. I got back I left Palm Springs this morning. I just spent 3 days at Jeff Bezos' Mars conference down in Palm Springs.
Was it in Mars?
It was not in Mars. That would be nice. 30 years from now, that may be.
I mean, look, I thought you were gone for a while, but
no. Mars stands for machine learning automation. Machine learning AI. R is
research.
No. Robotics, and S is space.
Okay.
And it is 200 of the top researchers around the world in all of those disciplines and a bunch of others, including some TV people, in the Parker Hotel in Palm Springs for 3 days. And everyone is so...
It's a good restaurant at that
it's
Parker
incredible.
Hotel.
It is terrific. The food is great. The staff is great. The conference... Everyone at the conference is so overwhelmed by the intellectual prowess and incredible work of all the other people at the conference that it feels like a completely level playing field. Last night I was enjoying some cigars by the fire pit,
as one does in 1997, Adam.
And I pointed to I was talking to these two female researchers. This one amazing woman from Yale who did a presentation on robotic skins, literally a a robot skin the size of a napkin that you wrap around anything soft, and it can start to move like an earthworm.
Oh, like the Borg Queen puts on Brent Spiner in Star Trek First Contact.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm talking to her, and we're chatting, and we're talking about the conference, and I said, "Wait, let's listen to this crowd. It's about 100 people around the fire pit, and 40 conversations going on." And I'm realizing, at a party where everyone's drinking, usually you're hearing a lot of loud stories, a lot of hearty laughter, a lot of posturing, and the sound of this, and it's like 11:30 at night, is all these people just trading information as
Gentle
fast as they
murmur.
can, all really, really excited, and you can feel that energy, and it was stunning. So last night was the final night of the conference. I interviewed.
Was Jeff Bezos there?
Yeah.
Did you meet him? Do
No,
you know
Jeff,
him?
I do know Jeff.
You do.
Yeah.
What's he like?
He has an infectious laugh. He is intensely curious. On an interpersonal level, I really like him. His effect on the world has large positive things and large negative things,
Yeah.
and I recognize that. On a personal level,
Do you think he's aware of that?
I'm sure he's aware
Okay.
of that. I don't think you can't be aware of that.
I mean, I don't know. I know a lot of people who've reached a certain point and then become kind of unaware of the wake that they leave.
I have met a few billionaires
Mm-hmm.
in my life, and I will say that Jeff seems like the sanest one or the most approachable one I have met. But it's also plausible because we're almost the same age. I'm only a couple years younger than him. And really, it feels like the whole reason this conference exists is to engender conversations between people from different fields and see what things they can collaborate on in the future.
It's the thing Chris Kimball said when I talked to him at the Test Kitchen years ago, which is, "Oh, you do this because you want to meet a bunch of interesting people."
Well,
That's exactly
what
what
chop
this-
liver?
You were there.
I was there.
Max was our audio guy.
I was your
that day.
AV guy.
Audio guy that day. I completely forgot about that.
It was an amazing conference. So last night we wrapped it out. I interviewed Daniel Abraham and Ty Frank, the writers of The Expanse, on stage. The previous night was Dennis Murin and John Knoll were interviewed on stage, and then after that was Mark Hamill. I didn't do that interview.
Were there real scientists there too?
Absolutely.
Okay.
There's entertainment for the real scientists
I
to
see.
bring in the movie people. But I mean, also we were talking seriously about the virtuous cycle between art and science.
Yeah.
That has always propelled NASA. Has always been a heavy driver of the cultural love or dislike for NASA and its explorations.
Well, I have a question. I have a
super
question about
invigorating.
that.
Yeah.
Am I interrupting your story?
No,
if I ask you a question?
that's
So I think that we're in an. I'm a big sci-fi. I consume a lot of science fiction media, and I think we're in a very interesting time in science fiction over the last, 10 to 20 years, where things feel really stalled out to me, and it feels like the science fiction to me has always been like the forefront of the liberal imagination of like what can we do?
I mean, I think that's true.
What can we do, right? So Star Trek in this from the 60s through the 90s was this like
utopic vision.
yeah, and we imagined another way that we could be in the universe
Yes.
and we could relate to each other. And I really think like all sci-fi is dystopian now. It's easier for us to imagine the end of the world than the end of capitalism. Now.
Counterpoint. Seven Eves is super optimistic about human beings and their potential.
I don't really.
I do think so. I think
It-
I feel like it definitely is.
Spoilers for Seven Eves, but like that book, the first
So,
1,000 pages.
Hold on. Real spoilers. I strongly recommend you read this book, and if you have any inkling you're going to read the book, don't listen to any
fast
of
forward
these
2
spoilers.
minutes.
Yeah, but go ahead.
That book, the climax of that book is us getting to a point where we've destroyed every one billionth
And
of the population of the
somehow
of the
pull it
world.
off, and we somehow pull it out of the
But
fire.
I'm not.
yeah.
But I'm not. I mean, I like
also
a
Shishin Liu. I've just read Ball Lightning, the Three Body Problem.
Oh,
trilogy,
yeah, okay.
And Ball Lightning, which is kind of a prequel to it, which I
Okay.
just read.
Okay.
Both very positive about humanity.
I would say Kim Stanley Robinson is the other is the
Yeah.
counterpoint to that though, because like Aurora is a deeply
It's Kim Stanley Robinson's also Red Mars, Green
Red
Mars.
Mars, Green Mars, Blue Mars.
Mars. Yeah.
I'm thinking. So I do love all this stuff, and I agree with you. Like they're showing like a way for the human spirit to triumph, even in the face of this like catastrophe. Although where's the like really optimistic science fiction where we don't destroy the planet in some
Right.
way, or we don't have a catastrophe? But not only that, but also like if you look at the stuff that breaks through into the mainstream, you know, the really mainstream stuff, like it's all superhero content now.
Right.
And to me, with that, I mean, my reading of
Pure
that.
fantasy.
But it's also the idea that our problems are so insurmountable. We have these like collective action decisions that we can't do anything about, and we know that it's so hopeless and we're so fucked that the only thing that we can sort of conjure that could save us is a Superman who's really and our, you know, it always has to manifest in a villain who can be punched, and then an even stronger guy who can punch him.
Well,
and it's
why-
like,
yeah,
oh,
that's
that's
why-
our salvation. Is like a Superman will come along.
That's why a bunch of people. That's why there's a rally behind everything Elon Musk tweets, even when it's absolutely inane.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Right.
I agree.
Yes, the Bond villain we deserve.
I mean, he's both.
Right.
He's
No, he
Tony
is.
Stark
Yeah.
and the what's his name with the cat from Spectre.
Well, all of
Blofeld.
Blofeld.
about half of the Marvel movies are about the world being put in danger because of some crazy thing that Tony Stark made, right? He has like a rogue Iron Man
That's
suit.
true.
Is the villain of all of those movies.
Yeah.
Just saying.
I mean, he's the cause of and solution to most of life's problems.
So well done. So, in essence, you're saying you are asserting that our culture is dropping the ball in positive visions of the future in the middle of this morass we're
or it's
moving
that it's
through.
just telling that we don't have the if those exist
Right.
that they're not what people want to hear right now.
right.
Like there's something, and even the new Star Trek, even the new incarnations of Star Trek,
It's
which I
much
think
darker.
are fun and I enjoy, but it's not. It doesn't feel the same as Star Trek to me.
I think the third one is more of a traditional Star Trek. Like the third one is very much the one that made like $8 million or something.
I like the opening scene.
Look, the cold opens of those movies are the best part of the movies.
Well, the
Yeah.
cold open of the 2009
all three of them.
one, I think the cold open of the 2009 is one of my favorite cold opens of
Is-
a good action movie.
Yeah.
That's the
That's the birth of Kirk.
yeah.
Yeah, the birth of Kirk, the Spock
Phenomenal.
volcano.
Yep.
And
I didn't like the running from the natives in the forest in
I
the
loved
second
it.
one.
I think
Felt
it's
very
great.
Star Trek-y to me.
Yeah.
It felt way too Laurel and Hardy to me.
It was a
Okay.
little farcical.
yeah.
Now, can
yeah.
I blow your mind?
Please.
Is anyone watching The Orville?
No.
Okay, I'm telling you, I have good. I just want to assert that I have good taste. The Orville is good now. I'm just saying.
Here's a hot take.
I'm just saying.
Huh.
I'm saying I just caught up with it because I was hearing a lot of buzz about The Orville,
And what I've been
and I
hearing
caught
is
up
that-
about it, and I'm telling you, The Orville is good now.
And what you mean, like, so what I've been, like, their heart's in the right place and they're making something genuine instead of making something that's in the response to something.
Like I can't wait to see the next episode.
Does it
It's
seem like
so-
Galaxy Quest? Does it
it's-
feel like Galaxy Quest? But like
it
TV?
is it's the heir to the classic Star Trek that I'm nostalgic for.
Okay.
Yeah,
Wow.
they somehow nailed it. I think they had to figure out. I think they had some balancing of like how much of a Seth MacFarlane comedy and how much of an earnest sci-fi
Right,
we're
right,
doing.
right.
And I'm telling you, the Orville, it's so good.
Fascinating.
They're doing kind of straight ahead sci-fi now, and it's great.
Amazing.
It's really
All right.
good. It's
All right.
really good.
In preparation for the interview with Ty and Daniel, I rewatched all 3 seasons of The Expanse, which is even better the second time, honestly. I love that show. I mean, I also am, I think, a sort of honorary part of the extended family. So full disclosure, I've been on the show. I was killed at the end of season 2. And I know those guys all those folks really well. But it's terrific. It's terrific. It's like my favorite kind of sci-fi.
It's one of those things. They took the source material in the books, and they made a really honest reimagining of that also is very true to the original from what I've seen.
Yeah, it really it's terrific.
What? I mean, so The Expanse is not an optimistic show. I've been racking my brains over here trying to think of
I'm
something
not
in science
sure I
fiction and
agree with that.
optimistic.
I actually think ultimately The Expanse is quite optimistic about people.
Ultimately, well, so I think most modern science fiction is optimistic about people as a singular and pessimistic about people as a plural, as a whole.
I'd actually counter that. I think that the thrust at the end of season 3 is the opposite of that.
I haven't watched all.
That
season
there are
3,
some
so-
bad eggs,
Okay.
but that ultimately people will figure out a way to do the right thing, and it's not always in the hands solely of the hero. So they really do, like, collective action helps save the day at the end of season 3. Spoilers.
This is one of the things that Scalzi's new trilogy, or I assume it's the trilogy series, the Collapsing Empire books, deals with, because it's basically a society that is very fragile and is faced up against what seems to be a society-ending calamity. And the whole series seems to be about how they're approaching this problem, how the society is. And they're...
Is there a Netflix thing that Scalzi wrote that's out now?
Love, Death, and Robots.
Have you seen it?
He's
Has
done
anyone
3
seen it?
episodes of it. I don't know. I can't find out which 3 he wrote.
Okay.
Because there's like 15 or... So I watched the first 3 of the... I sat down to watch like one 17-minute thing last night and ended up watching for an hour and a half last night.
Okay.
It is a series of vignettes produced by David Fincher that are all animated. It's kind of like the Animatrix in that each seems to have their own unique art style. It's unclear to me so far if they live in the same world, and the tone has varied dramatically from like Game of Thrones, not exactly sex position, but kind of like early Game of Thrones uncomfortable violence and nudity.
It's Love,
mixed.
Sex, and Robots officially?
Love, Death, and Robots.
Sorry.
Did I say sex again?
You did.
Shit. It's Love, Death, and Robots, I believe.
I'm
Okay.
texting
Should I
him.
watch
We'll
it?
See.
I'm 3 in. Like they're 7. The anthologies are 17 minutes.
Oh,
I would
okay.
definitely watch the second one. Like that. The second one tells the story of these 3 very different robots. One is like a stars kind of interstellar robot. One is
Tars.
It's the best.
One of my favorite robots ever.
It's very good. One
Were
is
you? I was waiting the whole movie for the betrayal or for the
for the robot to be the baddie?
Something, yeah, for something
no,
with
of course you
Tarzan.
were.
Yeah.
I was delighted by that they made it
So much.
how it really would work. I guess
so much.
Yeah.
Also,
wait until Interstellar 2.
the idea of
Tar is harder. Sorry, I
the
apologize.
idea of hiring Bill Irwin to do Tars, both the action and the voice, was so inspired to bring in such a perfect physical mover as like our greatest living clown.
Oh, and like the moments that they have when he goes into the star formation, starts rolling through the
on
water
the water
planet.
planet. Yeah.
Oh my God!
so
When he's
good.
carrying out of the
amazing.
I'm chills.
Amazing.
It's my Tars is my favorite part of Interstellar.
So the second episode of Love, Death, Robots is basically 3 very disparate robots. One is like your typical kind of iRobot humanoid murder bot.
yeah.
One is like a little friendly baby monitor robot, and one is the Tar style. And they're just tourists through the post-apocalypse, and they're like taking pictures, like picking up stuff, and like wondering what did humans use this for? Oh, meat bags. It's very it's very Bending Rodriguez meets like a hard gritty sci-fi that I found utterly charming. I would bet that that's one of the Scalzi ones, but I don't know for sure.
There's a lot of content to watch now.
Oh my
a lot
God,
of
there's
content.
so
You
much
love
to get
content,
through.
Max.
I love making it. I love creating it. I love consuming it.
My wife and I have been elongating our attention span.
Ooh.
So we went and saw. We talked about this on the podcast last week. We went and saw Captain Marvel.
Okay.
And we liked it so much we came right home and watched Guardians.
Okay.
And then the next night we watched Guardians 2, and the night after that we watched Ragnarok. And for us to watch 4 movies in 3 days, that's actually unparalleled for the past 5 years. And it's been feeling really nice to sit down and enjoy some long form content because everything's been half an hour or an hour increments.
So I've been thinking about a Kickstarter that I want to do that ties into this, because it is basically a time lock safe for your phone. So when you start watching a movie, you just put your phone in there, and it seals up, and you can't get it out no matter what.
Well,
for the next 2 hours and
What
30
if,
minutes.
what if something happens
So
and I
you
need
want
to
to
know
be your
about it?
own,
needs to
you want
have
to be
an
your
app.
own Jack White concert in your house.
Yeah. Look, there are worse things to be than a Jack White concert. in my
Scalzi
house.
says that he wrote 3 robots.
Bam.
When the Yogurt Took Over,
I haven't watched that one yet.
and Alternate Histories.
This is amazing
Tell
fact checking live.
Scalzi I said hi.
That's
Here,
that.
send him a little picture.
Oh my goodness.
This is good
This
podcast.
is good podcast.
content.
Nothing like texting live on the podcast. Hey, Gunther, cut this bit out.
No, he's not cutting it
He's
out.
not going to cut it out.
Hey everyone, Norm here. Before the guys continue this week, I want to let you know that Still Entitled is also made possible by Shaper. Take networking from awkward to awesome with Shaper, the #1 professional networking platform that uses your experience, interests, and goals to help you find and make the right connections. Whether you're looking for investors, a co-founder, a new job opportunity, or just inspiring conversations, Shaper can connect you to professionals who truly want to share tips and help. Each day, it suggests 15 people with similar goals and interests for you to meet. Then all you have to do is take a few minutes to swipe through your daily profiles. Then set up coffees with the people who stand out. And if you're a professional, the Shaper app should be installed on your phone. So download the app today. Go check out Shaper online at shaper.co. That's Shaper, SHAPR.co. To learn more about Shaper, download the app and improve the way you network. Back to the conversation.
So, wait, what were we talking about?
I don't
You
know.
want an app?
I have questions for Adam.
Yeah.
Can I ask you questions?
By all means.
Okay, on the topic of attention span length thing. I'm actually really interested in this. So I'm a big fan. I've been following your career for a long time, and I watched MythBusters at least all through college, but if not before, and it really helped. It gave me a feeling of I could do it. I could just do it. That there are these big things out there, these big impossible things out there that are so huge in their ambition and so crazy and so dumb in some cases.
Yeah, totally.
And the only difference between it happening and it not happening is that you can just do it. And I really appreciate it. And that was gave me, and it still gives me that feeling watching Junior.
You could barely bestow a higher compliment on the show. Honestly, that is exactly what we were. That's the story we were always trying to tell.
Well, it came through to me, and it was. I really feel like it. I learned. It was. I mean, yeah. It made a big impression on me. But here's
This is more of a comment than a question. Then
it's a two-part question.
Remember, questions
Part
don't
one.
start with the letter I.
Part one. Okay, so you continue to now. I watch all your YouTube builds and stuff, and and I'm like looking around this office, and you probably get more shit done. I know a lot of people who have some success or whatever, and what can I say? Like it's kind of slows down at some point, right? At some point, you become a guy who talks about doing things, and you are about doing things, but you don't actually make so much stuff anymore.
It's funny because when you have a build show, I'm doing a build show right now for Science Channel, and one of the things about having a build show is that the thing you do the least in a build show is build.
It's like running a website about.
And so I
Maybe
totally know
that's-
what you mean.
Maybe
Go
that's
ahead.
the answer. But I mean, you just have a higher output. You come up with cool things to do, and you do them, and then you finish them. Right? I do not see 75 half-finished projects out.
Well,
There's
I'll show
stuff
you
that
because
gets-
on the rack above my table saw is 75 unfinished projects, and I literally put them one level deep on a set of shelves so that they were always looking at me.
Oh, interesting.
And
the wall of shame.
The unfinished business is something I get questions about a lot. And as for the output, it's a really interesting question because my wife wonders when I'll slow down. Certainly.
Yeah.
But I've also been building a larger infrastructure here with shop assistants and getting more projects done. The Mercury cockpit over there is one of them. The Blade Runner blimp is another one, made possible by me asking for hiring and supervising help to complete things. But there's so much to do.
I think.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing. I feel like I don't think of it as being busy. It's just like there's an endless list of things I really want to go and do,
Well,
and people I want to collaborate with.
I have the same feeling as well as a fear that if I stop for even 1 second, it all goes away and I'll never get it back.
There is
and I could
clearly
never.
some fear behind it. Because as I picture my future, I picture myself in my dotage at 75, like building ship models for the Smithsonian and just doing that. Like that, and mentoring kids making stuff. That like those two things.
I mean, I think so. In the early days of us working with you at Tested, I think the first maybe 2 years, a lot of the projects were things that you had been working on for like
Right,
5+ years.
We were filming the tail end
like
of
we
a
did,
long term.
we did ZF1, the Mecha hand from Hellboy.
Yeah.
There were a lot of projects that had been kind of stewing for you for a really long time in some cases.
Yeah.
That then we caught up on it. And the thing that's been fascinating for me to watch from the outside now is over the last 2 or 3 years, you've been doing more kind of start to finish projects that have been things that you wanted to do clearly for a really long time. And then kind of had never had an excuse. Like, I think in a lot of ways Tested is a good excuse for you to do some of this stuff.
Oh, it's a significantly good excuse. And also, your question drifts into this other thing, which is happening right now, which is the difference between the television viewing use case and the YouTube viewing use case. On television, you have very specific restrictions within the agreed upon model of having a really good hook, an awesome hold, and a phenomenal payoff. And Well, that doesn't hurt with a YouTube video. I mean, my 1,000-shot Nerf gun, which got like 26 million streams, wouldn't have gotten that many if we hadn't shot dinosaurs at the end. And that was a really amazing finish that Norm Chan thought up. At the same time, a lot of people write to me and say that our one day build videos are things they put on their computer at the end of their workbench and then they work.
Mm-hmm. And people tell me they work in a kitchen on the line and they run that stuff in the background because it's great to listen to and they can kind of glance up occasionally when they want to see something. And
I really appreciate the different. It didn't occur to me for the longest time that we were telling fundamentally different stories that way. That Joey and I learned together how to kind of cut silence into the videos because so much of building involves this kind of like half an hour of you going.
I remember when we started, we used to have conversations about, hey, is it okay to show, like, do we have to record voiceover for all of the stuff that you're doing so that we can show it? Or can we, and like, we couldn't decide what to do.
There's more stuff in the build videos that doesn't work as well. I mean, you get some of that on TV, but in general, the momentum of TV is like, we tried it, it worked, it was successful. But whereas on the builds, like you're genuinely in suspense of you're like, we're going to try it, I don't know. And then sometimes it does and sometimes it doesn't work.
So I'm pleased to say that again, and I'm sorry I keep teasing the show without telling you guys its title or its release date, but I will have those things soon.
I'll tell you, DM me.
Max's DMs are open.
Is that we've had... that every episode is going to include a lot of that iterative failure or iterative things not quite working until maybe they do. And, that tension is much more extant in this because I consider that one of my favorite stories to tell.
There's a book I really like. I think it's called 99 Things I Learned in Architecture School, and it's like a design theory book. And he has a list in there of things that are important to the creative process. And one of them that I think about all the time is... part of becoming like creatively successful is learning to embrace as normal the anxiety of not knowing what to do next. And I think to people who I work with, I mean, I have many friends and I work with people who like, they get an idea in their head and they're like, what if I never have another idea? Like, this is it. Like, and part of it is you have to be at peace with sometimes you don't know what to do next.
When I was a graphic designer for a few years, and there was a point at which I decided to go take some classes in graphic design because I hadn't done that. I learned on a stat machine. It was like ordering the Citronics type. This is just before computers.
Mm-hmm. What a linotype.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was a type specker.
Oh, nice.
And at one point, a teacher at School of Visual Arts said, it doesn't matter what you're designing, whether it's a logo or a page or a paragraph or a wanted ad. If you're really going to do it right, it's going to take at least 5 hours to get to something useful. And that was so liberating to me because it took me at least that long to get any kind of page to a place where I felt like it really had a flow and a balance to it. And until you find that flow, it's 5 hours of fuck. Wait a minute.
This one's terrible. Yeah, throw it out. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's lots of sketching and lots of iteration. And yeah, living inside that tension. I mean, one of the things I have always talked about is that there wasn't a single build in the 5 years I worked at Industrial Light and Magic. There wasn't a single build I did in which at some point I didn't have the... Sorry. On every build I did, at some point during the build, I was sure someone was going to come up and tap me on the shoulder and go, it's time for you to go. Clearly, you don't know what you're doing. 5 years.
Yeah.
12 films. At some point, I was like, oh my God, I'm such an idiot. Why do I even do this?
I'm going to go Google, how do I become less self-aware?
Okay, so enough of this, like...
Not by Googling that.
Enough of this, like, inspiration nonsense. Like, the other thing I want to know is, like, so let's say you sit down to build something. Like, this is something I've actually never seen you talk about.
Okay.
How do you know what to do? So do you take a pad of paper and do you make a checklist? Do you use an app? Tell me. I want to know.
That's not true. Sometimes you do a checklist, but when you sit down to build, usually you just start working on it and then you fix it as it goes.
No, but you don't know so all the builds you've ever seen me do on test.
Yeah.
You and you, always begin with days and sometimes weeks and in some cases months of me thinking about the build before I jump in.
Is there a text file? So what do you do when you come up with, you're like, oh, it'd be cool to make that? Is there a text file? Is it an app?
It's my sketchbook, which I don't have here because I left it at the house this morning.
What if you have an idea?
I'll grab any piece of paper and make a list.
So you're a pen and paper guy.
I'm a pen and paper guy.
And you have the Blackwing pencils with the black erasers?
What? It's the Papermate Sharpwriter number 2.
Okay.
The
Or
yellow
Sharpwriter
ones.
number 1, the little yellow shitty ones.
Uniball Vision Elite.
It's
extra fine.
It's the one I
Yeah.
love, and
Yeah.
I buy them by the case. And
Yeah.
so if it's a simple build like I'm going to organize a drawer with foam core, I do just jump in and start grabbing. But if it's has any level of complexity to it, I will sit and think about how I want it to. I want the overall structure to be, and so I can't begin until I've solved a certain level of the problems. And it may be only 10% of the problems, but I've solved the ones that I know are going to kick my ass mentally. And one of the ways I do that is I start drawing the thing. I do sketches of it, and then I start doing sketches of the components. Okay, it's going to require some electronics, going to try 5 buttons, which means I got to do a wiring diagram. And then I start to think it through. And in some cases, I have sketches of the same prop in 4 different sketchbooks over the last 8 years.
The other thing you do that I think is really interesting is you have that catalog. You catalog photos exhaustively, like research materials and photos.
Yeah.
How do you do that?
So if I'm interested in
can't believe we've
something,
never
let's
talked
see,
about
one of the
this.
most recent ones is
We'll do the Mecha hand. 'Cause you
okay.
had
So
thousands
for
of
the
photos for that.
so for the Mecha hand there, the Hellboy Mecha hand, I started out by downloading every photo I could online, and then I started buying magazines, and I'll scan pictures out of those magazines.
And where do those go?
Those go into I have a folder on my computer called Creative Projects, and in there I'll make a actually in Creative Projects there's a Guillermo del Toro folder, and in Guillermo del Toro there's a Hellboy, and in Hellboy there's already a bunch of things which I've already built, and the Mecha hand becomes one. So Rasputin's Mecha hand becomes a folder.
And is this on a cloud somewhere? Is it just
No,
a folder
I
on
keep
your
it on my
desktop?
hard drive.
Okay.
I
So if you're-
can't stand the
so
cloud
if
upsets
your
me.
if you
But you
lose
back
your
up.
computer,
He
I
backs
do.
up.
I back
you
up.
back up. Okay. Okay.
So the first pass is photos I start dumping every piece of reference material I can. And then if I'm on a plane and I can't download because the internet sucks, I'll start looking at the photos and I'll start thinking, okay, at a certain point I get this saturation of, let's say, 70 photos. Now it's time to start breaking the project into chunks. And what are the first chunks? Okay, well, there's all this test tubes. There's like 11 test tubes on the thing. Okay, so let me just start to quantify those. So I'll make a document and I'll number them, and then I'll have a folder for each one. And then I'll start taking larger photos and doing, selecting test tube number 4. So for the Blade Runner blimp, there's 24 antennae that go around the perimeter. I have a folder for every single one of those antennae. And in every shot I could find of it, I would grab, so here's the A through D I can see on the front right. Here's the Z, N through T on the bottom left. And I'll make broad folders, and then I'll start to hone them in until once it's time to actually do those, I had a box with 24 compartments in it with the etched brass that went in each one, and the light that went in each one, and the stock that went in each one,
And
and the photo reference.
and
for
they
each
line
one.
up with the folders on your computer. And do
Yeah.
you still use Bridge to view all that stuff?
Yeah, Bridge is still my primary mode of
So we
surfing
found the user of Adobe Bridge.
I think
There
Adobe
he
Bridge
is.
is one of the greatest pieces of. Do you remember when
crazy.
the Canon SP110 first came out? The Sure Shot.
Yeah.
Right, the Canon Power Shot.
It was their first
It's like 98.
Yeah, it was like a 1 megapixel or 0.6 megapixel digital camera or something.
So
yes.
that Canon sold bundled software with that for surfing on your Finder through your photos, and Bridge is like the super advanced version of that.
And so when you say you have folders of images, you use Bridge to sort of break out the folders and view everything. Okay.
And I do that because I can't stand that that iPhoto grids a separate file structure on top of my
iPhoto is
Finder.
useless for organizing.
So I basically use Bridge and I make new
Can
folders.
you get that on your phone if you need? If you're out and about or whatever.
No.
You could share it to Dropbox. But
I
then-
certainly could
yeah.
share it to Dropbox, and I've done screen sharing sometimes, but I've never found that I needed it because my laptop is almost always within 6 feet of me.
Something I really like about this organization of the photos, like I am a procrastinator and I'm a pretty lazy person, like, and so a lot of times, like, if I have a project that needs to get done, I'm kind of waiting for the spirit to strike of like I kind of need to be into it to work on it, and then sometimes I'm just like, boy, I hope I feel like working on this before the deadline. And then when the muse strikes and I'm like, here we go, we're off, I'm doing it, I don't want to not be able to find my pen.
Right.
Because that will be an excuse for me to be like, I wonder if Will's playing PUBG right now. You know, it's like any little thing will sort of knock me off my horse. And I'm very particular of like teeing myself up, right? So having your reference photos, like when you're ready to go, it is such a gift to yourself to have all the reference folders cataloged and be like, okay, I've helped myself here by organizing a little bit.
And even more than that, it's such a value to me, even years later, to go, okay, Han Solo's DL44, the scope knob, the different scope knobs between the different models, and I can go into my computer and immediately find that within 2 minutes. And when I can't, I literally spend a couple of hours the following day, like doing a search bracketing by the dates I know that photo had to have been taken. I recently had a thing where, what was the photo I was looking for? I had taken some pictures of a prop while I was on a trip, and I can't find those photos, and it's killing me that I can't find them.
There's this is more in Will's domain, but there's like stuff out there now that will sort of search your photos visually.
You have to upload them all to Google to do that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Google will do that, but you have to give them to them. And that bothers me philosophically.
So you're licensing the way at least when I signed up for Google Photos, the way the Google Photos license is that they can use them in a way that lets them use them to learn how to machine recognize what's in pictures.
Yeah.
But not publish or republish or whatever.
Yeah.
Which I was okay with because now I can search for my daughter's name in a yellow dress and I get all the pictures of her in a yellow dress. But like your stuff is maybe specialized to the point that I don't think that contextual search will work.
Here's the other thing I love about Bridge, because over the past few years, I have brought in many, many, many more collaborators than I ever had before. And that has enriched and extended what I can do. And I can move things in and out of Dropbox right from Bridge's interface, which to me is a huge time saver.
Can you share someone on Bridge?
I can't, but I can take Bridge
But you
folders
can
and
pull it
copy
into
them
Dropbox.
into
They work in the Finder.
Dropbox, and it all works perfectly.
That's
like
cool.
it's totally seamless.
Like it's interesting because it's not a database, but it kind of gives you a database-like view of the photos.
Yes. Now, on the other side, I am slowly going through the process of archiving everything in here.
Wow.
So over the last couple of years, we archived all the costumes to a degree where there is a Google spreadsheet of all 78 completed costumes with all of their component parts, pictures of every single one, where I got it, who made it, how accurate I think it is, whether I want another one. And that I can access on my phone at any time.
Where does that live?
It's a Google
It's a
spreadsheet,
Google
isn't
Doc.
it?
Google
Yeah.
Doc. Okay.
And then I'm working. Freddie's going to start working on making a hard copy of that because I want a notebook here in the shop that you can flip through.
Like a
because
ledger.
to
That's
me,
cool.
Yeah.
what's
You're gonna
funny
get
also
like
is that
like a library stand with the brass light or like the green light on it, and you can see all the.
And even though I have all this stuff
quill.
digitally, when I'm actually working on a project, I have to print everything out in hard copy to help me build.
Often we'll come in and there'll be like a million pieces of paper out on the pool table.
And I mean, another thing that I often do is I'll print things in one-to-one scale. So I do a lot of Photoshop work, making sure that I've sized the photo so that when I have the hard copy, it's exactly the size of what I need to build.
So when you're working on a project, you have your reference images and you've kind of broken it into chunks in your just mentally in terms of knowing where you're going to start.
Yeah.
Do you have a to-do? Do you have like a project manager or a to-do list or any sort of software that like tells you what to do next?
It's pencil written. It's lists written in pencil with check boxes on the left.
How do you know what to? So leaving aside maybe any specific build, just you don't have a to-do list in general.
I have all these buckets of to-do lists, right? So I have, like for Tested, I'm working right now on the next year's worth of the types of stories that I want to tell on Tested. And some of them are one-offs, some of them are trips, some of them are 12 hours of content escapades that I want to go on. So I'll sit with my notebook and make lists of tested stuff. Then there'll be other shows I want to pitch. That's another one. There'll be people I collaborate with is another kind of list. My whole life is sort of moving these lists around. There's lists of things we want to do with our house. There's
Do you have lists of lists?
Yeah,
Like your top 10 lists that you like to consult
where are
when
the?
you...
Do you have a like notes
it's
app?
all
or something?
no. It's actually all in hard copy on in my sketchbook.
Do you
in
take
pencil.
photos of the lists or anything? Of the
Yeah,
pages?
sometimes I
Okay.
do. Sometimes I do.
Wow.
I think
The productivity software has never ever worked for me, and I try and
you're
I keep-
sensitive to speed is
I
the thing.
keep trying to use the iPads for this. So I have the pencil. I have the iPad Pro. They're beautiful. I think the pencil's interface is a remarkable advancement in human engineering. And I still can't. And I draw, like at least every 2 months, I'll try and do a drawing on an iPad. And it just doesn't have the same immediacy for me as pencil on paper.
What's great about this, like if you get into the right productivity software, is like you can really dick around with that thing. I mean, it really beats.
It's a
working.
real use of wasting
Yeah.
time. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll go into OmniFocus and be like, and I'll be like, have a crushing deadline that's about to destroy my life, and I'll be like, I should really redo my tag infrastructure. Like, I can barely find anything in here.
Well, so this is my one of the things that I was playing with was some short fiction filmmaking that I was thinking about doing, and I was shocked to find out that nobody makes a really good storyboard app for the iPad. There are a lot of storyboard apps for the iPad, but there's, as far as I can tell, there's none that fit my needs, which is I don't need it to be an AD's soup to nuts all in one thing. I want something where I can make drawings and assign them numbers so that I can look at them in order to make storyboards. I want to be able to choose my frame aspect ratio and make drawings for those storyboards. And I actually ended up I reached out to a friend of mine from Apple who connected me with some designers at Adobe, and I spent a few months going back and forth with Adobe about them just making something like this. And it hasn't happened yet, but for me, my productivity apps that I would want would be exceedingly simple. Like Bridge is a ludicrously simple app to me.
Yeah.
I think that's as good a place as any to wrap it up today.
I want to talk about,
Yeah.
I'm actually
I was gonna say
wearing
plugs.
a new bit of swag. Here's a plug. This is a brand new Savage Industries t-shirt, which will start to be available on Monday at adamsavage.com or at Cotton Bureau. This is
It's
a
on
whole
their-
new direction.
It's on their fantastic shirts. It looks like you just drew that on there with a white marker.
I
Adam.
did. I drew this with a whiteout marker.
Oh, you did
one
that
of
for
my
all of them?
favorite shop tools.
That's amazing.
I'm drawing on every single
Every single
shirt.
T-shirt. No, they're going to be screen printed. Just to be clear, the normal Cotton Bureau great screen printing on a fabulous
It's a
T-shirt.
good shirt. I've been admiring that shirt.
I'm really psyched about this. And it was one of those, we sit around here, Kristen and I and Norman, Will, and other folks, and we're like, talk about what the next Cotton Bureau shirt's going to be. And then it's, one of the things I love, and Jamie and I always love this, is you can argue and discuss and brainstorm ways to do things. And then when the right idea shows up in the room, if you're paying attention, everyone knows.
Yeah.
And those are my favorite moments. And Heinemann and I used to really value, you'd fight for your idea. You'd fight. And it's fun to argue and say, no, that's not how we should do it. This is how we should do it. And someone else goes, what if we use rubber bands? And everyone looks over and goes, oh, yeah, that's how we're doing it. And often we can't even remember who came up with the idea because it doesn't even matter. It's just like, it's the collective.
There's one of my fundamental precepts about coming up with good ideas for content is that if you don't have a conversation, if you don't discuss, if you don't fight about it, then you're not doing the most you can to get to chisel the good thing out of the bad.
You
footage.
need other opinions. You need
Yeah.
to defend yours. It's a really important
Isn't
and
it-
difficult part of the process.
Isn't it a great feeling to collaborate with people too who are all in the service of the larger idea and the project, and instead of a defensive kind of
Yep.
crouch?
Yeah, there's the most boring argument to have in the world is an argument with someone who just wants their idea to be the one you use.
Yeah.
Yeah, what a good
that's-
feeling! What a wonderful feeling that
It
is to
is.
have that collaboration with someone.
And,
I
like-
really value that.
And I didn't get I still don't get along with Jamie, but I value the fact that we both had that as our highest value,
Yeah.
right? Like we have healthy egos, but they didn't get in that way. They didn't get in our way in that way.
Yeah.
But we derailed back into a podcast.
It's okay.
Sorry.
Max, we'll have to have you back next time you're in San Francisco or we're in Chicago.
Okay.
Where can people find out?
Yeah.
What do you want to plug? You got anything to plug?
No, I don't
Come on,
recommend that.
plug.
Max does a really good podcast. It's called Do by Friday, and then there's one it's called Unattended Consequences. I don't know if you haven't listened to that.
Pat and I we have to get our shit together. We're
Pat-
so delinquent on that podcast.
You and
It's really
Pat
bad.
made what I would describe as one of my favorite conversational
Thank you.
podcasts.
Thank you.
It's just about two kind of nerdy guys.
The
talking.
premise of the podcast is I would get on Skype with Pat for an hour and just wind him up and then lean back, and it was just story time
It's
with Pat.
so
and
good.
It was great. And we recorded a bunch of episodes. We got on a schedule, and I just need to get my shit together and put them.
It was one of the
Thank
things
you,
I
Will.
put on
That's
when we're in
nice.
the car. It's a very good I'm right in the car with my friends Max and Pat, and it's very good.
That's awesome.
Thank you. That's very nice of you to say.
And Cards Against Humanity, you can find at Target probably.
Or
I don't
don't.
know.
I don't care.
Whatever.
Don't worry about it. It's fine.
Thank
Buy
you
a
for
t-shirt.
being
Buy
on
a
this-
t-shirt. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
This is so. This I mean, I'm barely paying attention. I haven't listened to a word anyone said. I'm just looking at this cool place.
There's great stuff on Tested this week, as always. We'll see y'all next week. I think Norm's probably back for that one, right?
I believe he
yeah.
will be.
Okay.
Or
maybe the one after
the
the
next. We're recording another podcast
yeah,
today,
that's
which
right.
will air later, and Norm won't be on that
Yeah,
one.
no, he's not going to be here. I know. The terrible segues all the way
Whatever.
through.
I'm
See y'all
better-
next
I'm
week.
cooler than Norm.
Bye. Thanks, Max.
Bye, guys.
Thanks for listening this week. And once again, I wanted to remind you that Still Entitled this week was brought to you by Triple Byte, because applying to programming jobs, yeah, it sucks. From endless applications to countless hours of technical screens, with Triple Byte, there's a better way. You do one online interview, then you go straight to final interviews at hundreds of companies, from tech giants like Dropbox to exciting startups. It's like the common app for software engineers. There's no resume needed. Apply now at triplebyte.com/untitled. And if you take a job through TripleByte, they'll offer you a $1,000 signing bonus. Again, that's triplebyte, BYTE.com/untitled. We'll be back next week.